Hi everyone, this is Jessie, and today we have such a treat on Becoming because we're with Jon Toms. And a lot of you will remember Jon Toms from his Becoming story, where he talked about getting naked in front of the mirror and how to love yourself well and body image. And so many of you wrote in to tell us how that really impacted you. So we've got Jon back. Welcome, Jon.
Yeah,
so good
you.
to have you. And Jon is going to talk through some of our topic for this month, which is all about relationships. And at Becoming, we so believe in fighting for wholehearted relationships, in really going after a deep connection with the people around us. And Jon, I know that's really important to you as well.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a bit about why that is? Why do you care about this?
Yeah, well, great question, first of all. Good to be here, thanks for having me. I'm normally used to like having a phone in front of me and video myself.
You've got a bit of
Now there's
distance
one here, so I'm like trying to get used to that, but here we go. Well, it's huge. Like, I think I really firmly believe all of us were made for connection. We were all made to connect to each other, get to know each other, be known by each other, understand each other. So I think vulnerability in community is just a no-brainer for me. It's so important that we learn to get to know those around us, learn to pursue those around us, and to really push into what it looks like to connect to other human beings. Like, I think fundamentally everyone is looking to be loved, everyone's looking to be seen, everyone's looking to be known. So I think for me, being known and learning to be known is just hugely important for any human. But for me, it's something I'm passionate about.
And it's so hard though, because I know even in some of the conversations I've had with people after our last blog post that I feel like that's our default, that we're born just having this high expectation of people are going to love us, they're going to accept us, and then at some point we either get really badly hurt or we have kind of a series of being hurt by people and we start to self-protect and we start to pull back, and it becomes a higher priority to keep ourselves safe than to lean into relationship. Totally. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on how to let people in if that's a fear for you?
It would be great if it happened automatically, like that we just wake up and we feel so known, so loved. Like, that would be the easy option for sure. Unfortunately, it's not at all like that. To be honest, like, I think about it a lot because I'm constantly going through the process day by day of like, how known am I feeling today? How pursued am I feeling today? How connected to my community, to my friends, to my family am I feeling today? Like, it genuinely is like a day by day, hour by hour, even like minute by minute. Like, how's my heart actually doing? Like, I consistently check in with myself throughout the day. Like, how's Jon actually doing today? Is he feeling anxious? Is he feeling stressed? Does he feel understood or misunderstood? Does he feel loved? Does he feel unloved? I'm constantly going round. Like, we have so many thoughts every single day, don't we? I don't know how many they are. Ask a scientist. But so many thoughts. So I think I will connect with those thoughts a lot throughout the day and think, how am I actually doing? And often check in with my heart and just, if it is feeling unloved, then I know that I need to do something about that. And I wish it could just be automatically that I suddenly feel loved. But actually, I think we are powerful beings. I think we have voices, we have hearts. Like, there's things we can do to actually communicate to those around us that we have needs. And we all do have needs as humans. And that looks like having to get kind of banter's a huge one for me. Like, I feel so connected to people when I can laugh with them, when I can have fun with them, and just crack jokes. I love a good deep chat. I love eye contact. Like, there's so many things that will settle my heart and actually make me feel kind of secure and in that place of feeling loved and feeling known. But actually, I have to make steps towards that. It would be great if it happened automatically, but it just really doesn't a lot of the time.
Yeah. And that's a really good key, actually, because what you're talking about is being self-aware about what do you actually need, and actually asking yourself those questions. And what is that, like, practically, what does that look like for you in terms of your journey? How did you get there?
Gosh, I mean, it's like, vulnerability is a huge part of it, but vulnerability is terrifying. I'm not going to say it's easy. You definitely sign up for it, and if you are willing to go on the journey of vulnerability, it's 100% worth it, because, like, we know vulnerability is the bridge to intimacy. Like, if you're willing to be vulnerable with people, you're likely to feel intimate with them, because you're actually sharing a need in that moment. You're making yourself weak in that moment, and you're actually saying, I need you in this moment. Like, we're not supposed to go on our journey of life alone. Like, we're not supposed to be isolated, we're not supposed to be lonely. Like, I really believe that we were created for connection. We were created to be in family, to be in community, to have friendships and relationships that really grow us as people. So we're not meant to be alone. So I think it's just vital that we learn how to do community really well, and vulnerability is a huge part of it. Yeah, for me, I didn't have a clue, did not have a clue how to do vulnerability. When I first heard of it, I was like, yeah, I don't relate to that at all. I grew up in quite a passive household. We weren't super confrontational. We all just kind of got along. as much as we could and just kind of moved on with our lives. Like there was never anything that felt like hard work at the time, because we just kind of did life. But I think the more I grew up, the more I realised, like, oh, I get to decide how I live my life. So you don't have to do vulnerability. I think you can get to the end of your life and not do it, and you'll probably be okay. You just might not be very happy. I think it's worth doing it, because the more vulnerable you are, the more connected you're going to feel to people, and the more intimate you're going to feel with people, and the more loved you're going to feel with people. And I think it's beautiful that we get a choice, that you don't have to go on this journey, but I really would recommend it, because if you're not vulnerable and you're not actually letting people see you, then you're not going to feel very known. Like that's the goal, that's what we're talking about, is being known. So actually, if you want to be known, you have to really put yourself out there. It's very easy to become victim and be like, oh, no one knows me, no one understands me.
I'm so lonely.
Yeah, totally, and stay in that victim place, which I've been to many times before. It's very comfortable just to stay in that victim, because you can just feel powerless in that moment and be like, oh, it's everyone else's problem, not mine. But actually to go against that victim mentality and say, actually, I'm going to be powerful about this. Like, I know I'm feeling lonely, so I'm going to do something about that. And vulnerability is really big for that.
And what would you say for people who, like you, that's not their history, this is new for them? How do you actually know, how do you start with doing vulnerability? How do you know who to let in?
Yeah, great. I mean, it wasn't my normal at all. I think I learned it at like 21 maybe. Like in my early 20s, I suddenly realised I'm going to live a really disconnected life unless I learn how to let people in. I mean, I actually was naturally, I'm a huge talker, as you can tell. Like all my answers are going to be very long. I'm a verbal processor. I'm very verbal in general, so I've never really had a problem spilling out. And I used to actually have no boundaries whatsoever. I would just tell everyone everything. I'm more than happy to just like share. But I think, so I think it's just just start sharing little things. Vulnerability also doesn't always have to be negative. Like it can be positive things. You can share your dreams or your hopes or your desires or a job you're going for. Like it doesn't have to be like, I did this and I feel shame about this, or I feel guilty about this. I think often we think vulnerability has to be the worst thing you've done in your life, but actually it's really vulnerable to laugh. It's really vulnerable to make a joke. Like anything where you're putting yourself out there to risk is vulnerable, like, because there's the risk of rejection, there's the risk of someone saying like, I don't like what I see. So there's so many different forms of vulnerability. So really it's just putting yourself out there. It's putting your best self forward and risking rejection. Really, that's what it looks like to be vulnerable. You're kind of risking, I could get rejected in this moment. So it's risky, but so just I guess find ways to make yourself known in front of people. Like share your heart with them, share your desires with them, share your career interests or your family hopes or your relationship goals. Share those things with people and just start small.
And you talked about rejection, and I mean the truth is that whenever we do put ourselves out there is a risk. That's a real risk that you could be rejected.
Very real.
So what would you say to people who have tried to be vulnerable and maybe particularly with friends that they've had for a long time and now they're trying to change their pattern of the way they're doing things? You're trying to be more vulnerable, but you're finding that people are uncomfortable with it, or they're not really sure what to do with your vulnerability, or they're not really sure how to meet you in that place. What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm sorry if you've had that experience. Like, I'm sorry if you've experienced rejection or you've been vulnerable and you've had a bad experience. Like, I genuinely am sorry about that. It's so difficult and it's so hard when you put yourself out there. So firstly, I'd just apologise to them on behalf of that person, because there's nothing worse than putting yourself out there and then just getting rejection and you're like, I've proved myself. You almost are like, I'm going to do this, and then you prove yourself wrong almost, and that's really tough, like when you do put yourself out there. But I strongly believe in redemption and healing. Like I don't think anything is off limits for going back to that place. So I think whenever we actually have a bad experience, like you've got to let yourself heal from it. You've got to engage with the reality, like that was painful, that hurt, I did feel rejected, but know actually that your core is not rejectable. Like who you are is not rejectable. I don't believe anyone is rejectable, and I really try and remember that for myself. Like people can reject me, but actually that's their choice. Like I am not rejectable. People can make a choice to reject me, but actually I believe that I should be accepted by people, and likewise for everyone else.
And that's what we were talking about, restoring that default, isn't it, of I'm not rejectable. If we can actually get to that place where what somebody else does doesn't get to tell us whether or not we're rejectable.
Totally. And if you have that fundamental belief, then you'll be in a stronger place. If you have the opposite belief of actually I am rejectable, which I think I had for quite a while really, you're going in 10 steps backwards because you're already going into these moments and these conversations and these vulnerable moments believing you're going to be rejected. I think they call it like rejection goggles. I've heard it called before, when you're always wearing those, so you just always think you're going to get rejected, and then you do.
And you read things into moments then,
totally.
don't you? Of like, they rejected me, when actually
when they might not
have been true.
Yeah, they might not have heard you properly. They might just not know what to say, but that doesn't mean in that moment that they are rejecting you. You've got to have a bit of a kind of strong core in that moment and just be like, okay, that felt painful. I'm going to engage with that, but I'm going to go back to the truth that I'm not rejectable as a person. But also find the right people to trust. Like, not everyone deserves your heart. Not everyone deserves your trust straight away. It's important we don't just like put everything out there on the table, because it can be super exposing and it is super vulnerable. So actually just to put yourself out on the table is really risky. So be careful with who you share with. Like, find those safe people, and it might only be 1 or 2 people that you trust, and that's okay, but start with those people. I have kind of like older mentors or kind of father figures in my life that I will go to, that I trust, and I know that they're further ahead on in life, so actually they can probably offer some sort of support to me because they've been there before. So I will share with them what's going on, and find the people I trust. So yeah, find safe people. Safe people is very important. Like, some people don't know how to handle emotions if they're shut down themselves. Like, find people that are connected to their hearts, that are okay with emotions, and that are actually going to embrace like you when you're having a negative experience or negative emotions. Yeah,
that's such good advice. Is there anything else that, as we go on this journey with becoming, we're going to be talking about relationships and vulnerability for the next month, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with?
Well, great topic. Vulnerability and community is so important. What haven't we covered? Well, I think self-awareness is huge. Like, I had to become really self-aware. I had to really go on a journey of like, who is Jon? Like, I went away for 3 years, obviously, as you know, to ministry school in California, and that time was really just like, okay, who even is Jon? Like, I know for me personally, I'd spent a lot of my time kind of pouring into other people and like spending time with other people. I would always be like the counsellor, always be the one people would come to, and I would find my identity in that, really, because I was like, wow, everyone's coming to me.
I must be so wise.
I must be so wise. And that was kind of filling my love tank to a certain extent, because I was like, okay, I'm needed in this moment, this is brilliant. But actually I completely ignored who I was in that moment, because I didn't have any needs with anyone. I wasn't vulnerable with people, they were just vulnerable with me. So it was giving me to a certain extent, I was feeling really needed and feeling quite powerful in that moment. But actually on the inside, Jon wasn't being listened to. So I really went on a journey of becoming finding out who Jon is. And to do that, I had to be vulnerable with people, because there was areas when I looked, I didn't actually like who Jon was. So I had to work through those areas, and embrace other areas. And that was really important. So I think become really self-aware, like, learn what you enjoy, learn what makes you tick, learn what makes you feel loved, like learn whether you feel enough or not. Like, do you actually feel enough as a person to go to someone and say, I need you in this moment? Because that's really important, because if you don't actually love yourself and respect yourself, then you're not actually going to give yourself the time of day to go and say that you need other people in your life. So I think become self-aware and like really learn to love yourself. I think I touched on that in the blog a bit, but loving who I am was so important, because if you don't love who you are, then you're not going to be very good at loving other people. But actually, regardless of other people, I just think it's so important that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with me. I better like enjoy myself and like myself. So I think that's hugely important. So become self-aware, love yourself, and then go after that vulnerability, get that connection, and that's how we become the fullest versions of ourselves.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. There were so many brilliant keys in that. So we so appreciate having you, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and there will be more blog posts coming out soon on relationships, vulnerability, and doing deep connection. See you soon.
Thanks.